Well, it's great to be back.
Hey!
It's all right. I'm a little cold, that's my only problem. It's been 35 degrees for the last 3.5 weeks, with 90% humidity, low overnight of 25, sleeping under a sheet. It's a beautiful thing. So I come back first night, Mum said, "You got enough blankets? Here's another one, here's another one." So, it's hard work, So I just wanted to, I don't know if I can get a time to kind of really share a little bit, so I just want to kind of talk about my trip a little bit today and perhaps inspire you, encourage you, and to see what God can do in and through your own life. But Philippians 1:6 says this, being confident. Everyone says being confident. I can't hear you. Being confident.
Being confident.
Of what? This very thing.
This very thing.
He who has begun a good work in you, in me. So being confident, the one who's begun a good work in me, and you, Jack, what? He'll complete it. He'll finish it. And I want to tell you, God's committed to finishing the job. In you, in me, and in us as a church and a ministry. And He's not going to leave us hanging. He's actually more anxious to see it finished and completed than we are, And that's a truth that blows me away. It doesn't matter your life, the twists and turns that it takes, but he is so committed to seeing us finish the race and running the race well. And so I want to encourage each of you with that today. Wherever you are in your journey, in your walk with God, whatever's going on in your life, He is committed to seeing you through. He's committed to seeing you victorious. He's committed to seeing you overcome. And He's committed to us here.
Amen.
To see His purposes completed in the city of Frankston. Amen. So, I want to maybe put my PowerPoint up, Dorothy, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the Philippines. Now, in my late teens and early 20s, I visited the nation probably at least half a dozen times. I trekked through the villages of northern Luzon up in the rice terraces and hiked with a Danish missionary from village to village, just sharing the gospel and worship and had an incredible time. But my last visit was probably around kind of 1989. But somewhere in my heart I always knew I would come back one day, I would go back. And so in 2011, John Arnott invited me to be part of a team to run an Hillsong in the Philippines. And I said to him, I don't need to pray about that, I just know the time is right to come back. And so I've just finished I think it's my 9th visit there in the last kind of 4 years now. And every visit gets better, every visit gets more exciting, every visit God does more, and it's quite a humbling thing. So I want to share a little bit about my journey and maybe some stories, and we'll see how much time we've got. So I've got some pictures, and then we'll finish with a little video clip, and then see where we go. But so basically, the Philippines is a nation of 700 islands, and again prophetically, I just kind of so value Lindley and our prophetic friends, but anyone that's come near me prophetically over the last 2 or 3 years, it's always see you travelling over the islands, see you doing lots of travelling. And so this is just confirmation. The Philippines now has a population of 103 million. That's kind of staggering numbers, growing by about a million people a year, which is a crazy statistic. It's actually the 12th most populous country in the world. They speak about 170 languages, and the eight kind of major languages. Most of the kids in school now, if they're attending school, will learn English, so it's a little easier to communicate with definitely the school kids in terms of an English side, but the kids from the tribal areas still struggle a little bit obviously with English, and so their English is a little more broken. So Tagalog is kind of the national language, which I'll show you in a map in a minute, kind of originates out of the Manila area. The places I visit tend to speak Cebuano, which is their language. Now this is a really interesting stat. The median age of a Filipino is 23.2 years. Now what that means is that half of that 100 million population is under 23 years of age. So you've got 50 million young people and 50 million that are over 23. So that younger generation is this just something about the hand of God, and I'll talk some more about that in a minute. But God is stirring the youth of that nation in a big way, and so the Australian, just to compare it, our median age in Australia is 37.3, which again, so half of us are over 37 and the other half of us are under 37. So it's kind of interesting comparison. So religion-wise, okay, so Roman Catholicism is massive. Some Protestants and AOGs and all of that sort of part of that. You'll have certainly heard about the Muslim situation and the challenges that they're presenting at the moment. They're trying to claim a portion of the nation as their own little entity, and the government there is kind of working that through. There's a little bit of Buddhism and some other stuff there. So very religious nation. So, and that's its biggest challenge, you know. So I go over there and they say, "Oh, Australia's a Christian nation. It must be wonderful to live in a Christian nation." I said, "Well, not really. You know, our nation needs revival just as much as your nation does. You know, your nation needs revival from Catholicism. Our nation needs revival from humanism and atheism and everything else that we kind of deal with. But both nations in desperate need to discover the reality of a God that loves them." So the Philippines, for those of you who don't know, it's a strategically located nation as far as the Asia Pacific region is concerned. So Australia is kind of down there somewhere, down the bottom there. But it's strategic in terms of its geography. There's really kind of easy access to that whole Southeast Asia region, and of late the Philippines has become very much a missions sending nation, and so a lot of the people that I'm working with have a real heart for reaching their near neighbours with the gospel, which is kind of really exciting. And so culturally they can relate very easily to their Asian neighbours, and food-wise and everything, so they don't have the sort of challenges that we do. Okay, so this is a map of the 700 islands. So I said in my early 20s, I did a lot of work up here near Lawag, which was the hometown of President Marcos, for those of you that remember, but I did a lot of hiking in this kind of middle area there. But since 2011, I fly into this little place there called Cebu, where you might have heard me talk about my friends Robert and Sarah, who look after around 300 kids on the edge of a dump site, and they do an amazing job. And a lot of the poorer islands that are sort of scattered off the coast there. And then most of my other stuff that I've been doing, God's just been opening up really the island of Mindanao. You'll hear me refer to my friend Bong. So he lives in Cagayan de Oro. But I have a number of relationships now in sort of Dipolog, Cagayan de Oro. You'll see Butuan there. And then this particular trip, the third week of I spent a fair bit of time on that eastern edge, a place called Tandug, and a little province called Murrayhuttock. And then Davao, which is kind of really the capital of Mindanao. So, as I said, most of the relationships that God is kind of opening up for me in that kind of northern edge of Mindanao. So there's another map, so that kind of gives you a bit of a perspective anyway. But it's just rugged mountain areas all through there. So it's an amazing place. So last year, some of you will remember that God provided a kind of a miraculous trip for me. I picked up the sewing machine in Darwin and delivered it to my friends Robert and Sarah. It's actually now their best sewing machine. Now the only thing, this is an old Singer machine. They put a little motor on it. And basically what trying to set up is kind of micro businesses, so trying to help people that they can make a living. So we've tried a few things. The sewing machine, I'm looking to probably try and collect a whole bunch of sewing machines in the next 6 months or so to expand that program. Those of you that are aware of Nicola over there, this is one of the ladies that does a little bit of work for Nicola, but what she's doing there at the moment is making school uniforms. And so, as I said, Robert and Sarah feed, clothe and educate these 300 kids, so down to physically making school uniforms for these kids. So that's what they're currently being used for, and other times they make pyjamas, so Nicola engages with them as well. So, but it's great, it just keeps some money kind of rolling in the door. So on this particular trip, my first stop, I just stayed one overnight visit in Cebu, and there's a little Thai restaurant that I love going there. And so this is Robert Cuenca, his wife Sarah. So they oversee the dump site ministry. This guy here is Pastor Joel and his wife Joy. And they pretty much look after all the kids. So they're the guys that actually carry most of the weight on a practical level. Just an amazing couple. This guy behind me there, his name is Dodong. And so Dodong's kind of Robert's kind of right-hand man. So more food. So from there, I ended up meeting these guys. Now this is an interesting story. This is in a place called Gusa, which is a suburb of Cagayan de Oro. Now, as you'll be aware, we've built some good relationships with the Partners in Harvest Network, Pastor Dan Slade, who incidentally I think is meeting up with Mark in July. Dan will be lecturing at our college in Thailand this year, so a huge treat for our students there. But we've been developing this kind of network of connections, and so talking to Dan around about 12 months ago, he said, look, I'd love to start Partners in Harvest in the Philippines. And so last November, I basically pulled together all of our contacts, and we met in Cebu, about 50 pastors and leaders that we built relationships with. And so out of that came this desire to really network and communicate. And so one of the major reasons for going into Cagayan this time was to pull together the 4 Partners in Harvest churches in the city. So it was a great privilege and a joy to look. I'm in Australia, I'm a long way away, so if you need help, I'm not much good to you, but you've got guys on the ground here that are going to love you and support you. So we're really trying to build a network of connectivity on the ground there. So out of that, I was in Toronto last year, and I'd been become aware of a missionary couple called Don and Barbara Arnie. I've been trying to get hold of them for months, and while I was in Toronto, I managed to make phone contact with Barbara, and she said, look, I'd love to be part of that. And so she came, her and her husband, part of that conversation in June. This is their mission base in Gusa. So this lady here, Philly, is kind of heads up the base. And then they have what they call their firefall team, which Barbara and Don have planted around 40 churches over the last 22 years. And this firefall team basically goes around just encouraging churches, kind of fresh impartations of the Holy Spirit, doing teaching. And so they're an amazing team. So they welcomed me on my arrival, and I'll show you some more of that. So the very next day, hosted this Partners in Harvest event, which was terrific, and they were just so excited to come together. So I'll whip through these fairly quickly, but we kind of obviously had some great worship. They had a great worship band. They love their food, so food is got that with copious amounts of rice. So I'll work through these a little bit. So it was an all-day event, and really my heart was for them to really connect with each other. So I really kind of worked hard at getting them to communicate together and to find out about each other. So in the afternoon I broke them into groups. I broke the senior pastors into a group and got them talking. I got all the worship leaders talking. I got all the intercessors talking. I got all the youth workers talking. And so out of the 4 churches, it was just great. And they were really encouraged out of that day, kind of sharing with each other, praying with each other. And so there's just a super day. So out of that, I visited a place called Gittagum, and again, all these stories just take lots of time, but God kind of connected me with a guy called Nelson Alzura on my kind of trip kind of early last year, which sort of God just seems to put these little heart connections in my journeys along the way, and so I felt to go and visit his house, and he actually become one of the Partners in Harvest churches. So this is Nelson on the right, and Pastor Bibong on the left, who's one of the leadership team at Our God Reigns in Gusa. So this is Nelson's family, so his wife Juliet and his kids. We'll go through. And all around his place, you sit there, I spent 3 or 4 hours all the time. There's just little kids that's coming in, coming out, coming in, coming out. It's just really, really cool. So there's a whole tribe of them by the end. So they're very, very much a family culture, and it's just a precious thing. They've just put such a high value on family and family relationships. So then one of the other things I was able to do this week, I was able to get some money together for Pastor Bong's church, which is called Guiding Light Christian Fellowship. And there they've got some amazing musicians. None of them virtually own their own instrument, but I was able to facilitate the purchase of a little PA, which was such a blessing to them. So you should have seen them, they were so excited. And then I spoke on Mother's Day at Our God Reigns in Gusa on the Sunday morning. And these are the future worship leaders. They're just gorgeous kids, praying for all the mums, and a little bit of singing and worship. It was I'll tell you the story. These 2 little ones, God sort of profoundly used them to rock my world. So it was an incredible service. One of the in terms of church services, one of the most amazing services I've been a part of in any of my visits there. From there, I headed to Butuan, which was kind of next city across. So this is my friend Bernard Manlupig. He's the pastor there in a place called Obrero. And said the first night I arrived, and he said, we've got a meeting with pastors and leaders in the city. About 50 pastors and leaders coming, and so I'm all prepared. And I get there, and there's about 40 kids between the age of 5 and 12, and about a dozen adults. So I think this ain't going to work, God. So for the next hour, I was walking on water, and God was very gracious, and I got the little kids praying for each other and praying for the adults, and just a great time. So you've got to be super flexible on these things. You never know. Things are never what they seem. Even if they tell you something, it's more different. So then the next day, Bernard says to me, "Why don't you come and do some pastoral visitation?" So we jump in this boat, we cross the river. So it's a great way to do pastoral visits, mate. Just going to jump across the river. And you just walk into these little huts, and there's no electricity, there's no running water, and you just these little kind of grass huts. And you go in and they don't speak English, so everything goes through Bernard. And Bernard says, will you pray for them? You know. And you start to pray, and God just starts to lay some things on your heart and say, Bernard, tell them this, tell them this, tell them this. The next thing you know, they're weeping, and then the person next to tell them that, and they're weeping. I don't know why I have this impact on people, but by the time, you know, they're all weeping, and the presence of God just fills this little hut. And for me, that's probably about the most precious thing in the world. You know, you can have the crowds of hundreds, you can have the lights and the bells and the whistles, but it's really, it's people meeting God in a very personal way, and God communicating his heart in a very personal way. And that is such a privilege to do that, and to see their big happy smiles, to say, hey, God's really spoken to me, God really cares about me. And so I love doing a little bit of that while I'm over there, just spending time with people's in their homes, and all the time. The biggest thing, can you pray for me? Can you pray for me? So I spend a lot of time just praying for people, and God just seems to I don't know what he does. I can pray over here, and it's like, it's so hard to get an answer to prayer sometimes, Mark. You know, you get over there and it's like bang. It's like there's an instantaneous response. There's, you know, and I hear back of what God does. So it's just tremendously humbling. So Bernard's a great guy. So this, again, in Butchwans, this is my friend Rudy, also has a church there, and his son Dylan. So this is, then Bernard has a pig. So we're trying again, just trying to support with little micro businesses. So that the vision we've got now is to try and get everyone in his church a pig, which hopefully they can develop and grow and make some money on. So bacon. Yeah, bacon. That's it. So together there. So jump on another plane, and so back and forth across the island. So looks spectacular, but it's obviously humidity. So I had this amazing 2 weeks of just travelling around, and then, as I said, Barbara and Don Arnie invited me to be part of an international ministry team to do a youth camp for around 200 young people and somewhere in the order of 120 pastors. And so we ended up at this place called Mari Hatak, which is about 70 kilometres south of a little city called Tandag. And it's the most gorgeous place you would ever want to visit. It's such a privilege just to be there. Okay, typical Filipino scene, the jeepneys. So this then is our little minibus. So this guy here is a guy called Daniel King and his wife Jessica. So they're American evangelists based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Nicola, many of you would recognise, and then was myself was sort of the key ministry team. And then we had our interpreters, Robert and Sarah, and Bon came along for the ride. So this is a typical day at the camp. So every morning we met in these little huts for breakfast. And so this entire week I was getting to bed anywhere between 12:30 and 1 a.m. in the morning, and up at 5 a.m. 7 a.m. we had small groups, and so it was just a privilege just to get to know a bunch of people in a small group setting. So just very, very full-on days. And so breakfast was always a nice, relaxing time, and this little hut's right on the beach. So we'll just go Barbara Arnie, and then her husband Don is that gentleman there. So they've kind of been long-term missionary, very inspiring couple. Have done it very, very tough. You know, in the early days they were threatened. National People's Liberation Army, which is still active up there, threatened to kill them if you keep planting these churches, but they kept going. And so what they have now is amazing, and the quality of the people that they have is amazing. So there's a fire tunnel at the Young People's conference, and the presence of God was just crazy, and I'll show you some more on the video clip in a minute. But just young people just doing business with God, and it's just so humbling. And then we were invited to judge a talent quest. So this guy in the end is a guy called Matthew Trigg from the city of Davao. Again, he's an American missionary who knew Daniel and Jessica, so he came up. But this is our judging panel. A lady there is Amy, who is Don and Barbara's daughter. So we judged a talent contest, and the standard was amazing. It was amazingly good. So these guys were sensational. So this is the team from Gusa, and they kind of a choir singing, and then these guys in kind of native dress, all amazing. And so we had a beautiful venue. So just a roof with no sides. So we had a little bit of sea breeze that kind of went through. It's a little dark. So there's a little shelter outside. So Nicola and I did some teaching, broke the guys and the girls up into separate groups, which was excellent. So we had a great time. So she, obviously having lived over there, speaks a bit of the language, and so they're quite fascinated now with the fact that she can speak so much Cebuano. It's all right. They love getting their picture taken. And these two, so this is Pastora Dulce and Jemima. So you'll see Jemima in a minute. Great. So she's kind of heads up the church in Gusa, and just a great woman of God. So there we go. So this was kind of my view out of my front window every day. Is this little island, sort of 200 metres off the coast. Just great fun. So some of the young people in tribal costume, and this guy is the most amazing musician I have ever met. There is nothing he can't play: drums, bass, electric guitar, keyboard. He's incredible. He's such a great guy. So I had a lot of fun with him. And some of the girls, and this is so William. This is William and Jemima. They're getting married in October, and then they want to head up in a place called the Agusan Marsh and pioneer a church there. So pray for them. Just super couple. Very impressed. Carabao, he was not happy about being tied up, so he was telling me that. It's all right. So this was my small group. So I've got a group of eight pastors. So a lot of these guys were tribal guys. So a lot of ministries into the city, the guys speak English, but the tribal guys speak very little English, and so everything you do comes through an interpreter. But we had a great time in our small groups. And so this is the sort of the conference, all the pastors and leaders. So Don, Barbara, obviously myself, and Daniel and Jessica. So some major moves of the Spirit while I was there. Amen. And it was just awesome to be a part of. And so the video's never running, but I've seen 200 people just go down in the Spirit. I've seen it on video. I've seen Benny Hinn do it, but I've never actually been 3 feet away when a whole lot have just gone down with no one touching them. It's like, So Matthew learnt to play the shofar, so it's cool dude. So the kids having some fun. This is Daniel King hamming it up. So you see, it's just an exquisite place. And then on the Thursday morning, the kids left, and so we had a couple of hours. So we went snorkeling for a couple of hours, and then the pastors arrived in the afternoon. So we did get a little bit of time off in that week. So this lady here, her name's Amy. She's part of the OGR team. She's a missionary in India. So they're very passionate about not just raising up people, but raising up missionaries to reach out to Southeast Asia. So you might recognise that lady there. It's all right for those that know her. It's all right. This is my friend Bong. It's all right. And I'll just flick through these failures. So this is Robert, and well, it was great for these guys to spend time together. They were asked to do all of the interpreting, which was great. So I really enjoyed it. Last day they had a whole bunch of lipsticks and ladies' things, and the girls were very excited to be lining up for those. So it was great. So these fine young men, I just always fall in love with kind of significant people while I'm there, and these guys are no exception. So it's good. This family, just precious family. So, and this here, this is Lechen Baboy. So that's the last day we had a big feast. And no, it's not a feast unless you have Lechen Baboy. So it's there. It was a very special treat for us. So there he is.
So that pig looks so sad.
No, that's okay. So yeah. So amazing time with fast running, but I just kind of, hopefully you're getting some of my heart certainly for the place, but also just the privilege of just facilitating what God is doing in the nation. Strategically, I love kind of working strategically with the pastors, leaders and churches, but also just the privilege of kind of ministering to people one-on-one. So Dorothy, if we get out the video clip kind of ready to roll. It's a tremendously humbling thing, and I want you to know that you guys are a part of that. You know, when I go, I just thank you for your prayers and your support, and you know, some of you that give little gifts. It all gets used over there just to make a difference into somebody's life, and it's an extension of what we do. You know, so our heart here is a heart of compassion, heart of mercy. Has that sign there? Welcome, Brother Luke, to OGR. My goodness. Here we are in the first Partners in Harvest gathering in Kagiandioro. Gathering of the leaders of the 4 Partners in Harvest churches in the city. Is our God Reigns Ministry, their mission training base. Traditional Hawaiian worship song. Lady leading worship. Her name's Grace. Doesn't even own his own guitar. Someone watching over me. I'm not that style. If things go wrong, it'll be alright. But someone's greater is watching over me. My God cares too much to say. Mercies are new every day. I get out to pray and then road from Tanda to Murrayhatic. So very good road actually. Some coconut.
There was a competition. There was a competition about planting trees. So India had the record for planting the most trees in 1 hour. And so the Philippines took on that challenge, and I think they beat India. And so a lot of trees were actually planted here, which is why they also call it a tree park.
Well, here we are in Murrayhatic Tree Resort. And it is just a stunning place. So it's a coastal town, northern edge of Surigao del Sur. And looking back this way is what is called the Tree Resort. And for obvious reasons, lots of trees. First night of the OGR conference. 350 years old.
Eventually at 1 o'clock in the morning, they just party time! faces for the last half hour or so. Just from huge party celebration. His presence has just come, fill this place. Jesus. Well, we have been spoiled today. It's Thursday morning. We've just spent the last 2.5 hours snorkeling out on the little island across from Marihatta Tree Park, which is that way. As you can see, little huts there, a little boat came across, and the tide's just dropping, which is just making snorkeling just perfect. So yeah. So it's a tremendously humbling thing, just needy, and that seems to be the kind of people that God is attracting to us over there, as the people that in the tribal areas and the poorer areas of the city. So let's roll this and just some quick highlights. So it's a tremendously humbling thing, just as you start talking and sharing, and then you see grown men just kind of weeping their little hearts out, and just seeing God engage their hearts and bring healing to their hearts, and discovering the Father's love. And it's a precious, precious thing. But, probably the first Sunday I was there, God kind of really did a bit of a number on me. I'm sitting there in the front row like Mark is, and worship's just going off, and I'm sitting there just engaged in God's presence like this, and all of a sudden I just felt this little tiny girl, this 3-year-old girl, just suddenly she's kind of right there on my lap, and she's got her head against my chest, and I'm going, what's going on here? And she just stayed there, and she pushed herself into me, and I'm like, wow, this is really unusual, so just 6'2" white guys and little Filipino girls just don't connect. I've not engaged with her at all, and yet she was just kind of just resting on me, and she must have stayed there for about 5 minutes, and then she disappeared, and about 5 minutes later she comes back with a little friend, and you guessed it, there's got one here, I've got one there, and they're both up against me. Oh God, what's this about? And I was sort of clapping my hands like this, and then she grabbed the outside of my hand, she put her hand on my hand, and her other hand on the outside of my other hand, and she discovered she could move my hands like this, and she was having great fun just moving my hands. And then they left. And I just said, God, what's that about? And just instantly, he just said to me, if you'll learn how to snuggle, I'll allow you to move my hands. And you could have knocked me over, but I just lost it. And it's a message to my heart, just to draw closer, just to get to a new place of intimacy with the one that loves me. I discovered their names later were Precious and Faith. So they were the two little girls that I was holding up in that picture. And you know how to make a mess of me, God, that's one way of doing it. But I feel, I think it's a word for us as a church, even this season of 10 minutes of prayer. If if we'll learn to snuggle, if we'll learn to draw close, he'll look after us.
Amen.
We'll move his hand. So I'll leave you with that thought. There's so much more to say, but just thank you for your support and just the opportunity just to share this with you, and because you're part of it, and I don't often get a half hour to kind of share everything that goes on, but just a super moving trip on so many levels. So I see that hand, Jack. But
Look, while you were over there was a massive storm hit the Philippines. How far were you away from that, and how did it affect the church?
so so Northern Luzon and Mindanao are as far as the east is from the west. It's 1,000 k's or more north. So that's that island continent. So Mindanao is the southernmost point pretty much, and obviously Luzon is up the top, so that it was even north of Manila. So no, we had not a drop of rain for 3 weeks, just constant heat.